An orphan found a mysterious locket, unaware it would unlock the truth of her royal heritage. The discovery happened on a bitter winter afternoon when 17-year-old Emma Thorne huddled beneath the threadbare blanket in her tiny room at Westlake Orphanage, where she had spent the last 15 years of her life. Outside, snow fell in heavy curtains, muffling the world beyond her frosted window. Inside, the only sound was her ragged breathing and the occasional creak of the ancient building settling against the cold. Emma ran her fingers over the small heart-shaped locket once more. She had found it earlier that day, buried in a box of donations, clothes and items deemed too worn or worthless for anyone else to claim. The locket's silver surface was tarnished almost black. Its chain kinked in several places, but something about it had called to her, a warmth beneath her fingertips that seemed impossible given the chill that permeated everything else in her life. 3 months? She whispered to herself. That's all she had left at Westlake before they would turn her out. 3 months until her 18th birthday. 3 months to somehow prepare for a world that had never wanted her. The thought sent a familiar ache spreading through her chest, a hollowness that had been her companion for as long as she could remember. Emma had stopped crying about her situation years ago, had learned that tears changed nothing. Yet the weight of her uncertain future pressed down on her shoulders like a physical burden. She clicked open the locket, expecting to find it empty like every other piece of discarded jewelry that occasionally found its way to the orphanage. Instead, a tiny portrait stared back at her, a woman with auburn hair so like Emma's own, wearing what appeared to be a crown of delicate crystals or perhaps diamonds. On the opposite side of the locket was an insignia, a lion rampant surrounded by 3 stars. Something stirred in the deepest recesses of her memory. A lullaby, perhaps. The scent of lavender. A warm hand against her cheek. A knock at her door startled her from her reverie. "Lights out in 5 minutes," called Mrs. Winters, the night supervisor. Her voice carried no warmth, only the mechanical obligation of someone performing a duty. Emma quickly slipped the locket over her head and tucked it beneath her threadbare nightgown. For reasons she couldn't explain, she wanted to keep this discovery to herself. It was probably worthless, just costume jewelry with a random portrait inside, but it was hers, perhaps the first thing that had ever truly belonged to her alone. As she lay in bed that night, the metal warmed against her skin. Her dreams, usually barren landscapes of loneliness, instead filled with colors she had no names for, whispered conversations in languages she shouldn't understand, and always, at the edges, a woman's voice calling a name that wasn't quite Emma's, but felt like it belonged to her nonetheless. The next morning dawned gray and unforgiving. Emma's breath fogged in front of her face as she hurried through her morning chores. The orphanage operated on a strict schedule, work in exchange for shelter and the meager education provided. At 17, she was among the oldest residents, assigned the hardest tasks while also attending classes at the local public school. "You're distracted today," observed Mr. Calloway, the English teacher who volunteered at Westlake twice weekly. Unlike most adults who drifted through the orphans' lives, Mr. Calloway actually seemed to see them as individuals. His kind eyes crinkled behind wire-rimmed glasses as he watched Emma struggle to focus on her essay. "Sorry, sir." She unconsciously touched her chest where the locket lay hidden beneath her sweater. Mr. Calloway noticed the gesture. "Something troubling you, Emma?" She hesitated. Trust did not come easily to children who had been abandoned. Just thinking about what happens after. Understanding dawned in his expression. "Ah, your birthday's coming up soon, isn't it?" She nodded, swallowing the knot of fear that formed whenever she thought about it. No family, no money, no real education or skills. The statistics for orphans aged out of the system were grim, and Emma knew it. "You know," Mr. Calloway said, his voice dropping to a confidential tone, "my wife and I run a small bookshop in town. We could use help after school hours. It doesn't pay much, but it might help you save something before..." Emma's head jerked up, disbelief warring with a dangerous flicker of hope. "Why would you do that?" "Help me, I mean." His smile was sad. "Because, Emma Thorne, contrary to what this place might have taught you, some people help others simply because they can." The concept was so foreign that Emma didn't know how to respond. She mumbled a thank you, her fingers once again finding the outline of the locket through her sweater. For the first time in years, she felt a tiny crack in the walls she had built around herself. That afternoon, with grudging permission from Mrs. Winters, Emma found herself standing outside Calloway Books. The The small shop was wedged between a hardware store and a cafe on Main Street. Its windows steamed from the warmth inside. A bell jingled cheerfully as she pushed open the door. The smell hit her first: paper and ink, dust, and something spicy like cinnamon. It was how she imagined comfort might smell if it had a scent. Shelves towered in haphazard arrangements, books stacked in precarious piles that somehow hadn't toppled in what appeared to be years. "Hello?" she called, uncertain. A woman emerged from behind a particularly tall stack of books, her silver-streaked brown hair escaping a messy bun. She wore reading glasses perched on the end of her nose and a cardigan with patches on the elbows. "You must be Emma." The woman's smile transformed her ordinary face into something luminous. "I'm Iris Calloway. Martin told me you'd be coming by today." She wiped her hands on her skirt and extended one to Emma. "Welcome to organized chaos." Despite herself, Emma smiled. There was something about Iris Calloway that made it impossible not to. "Let me show you around," Iris continued, not waiting for Emma to respond. "The system makes perfect sense once you understand there isn't one." The tour consisted of Iris pointing out sections that defied traditional bookstore categorization, books that make you cry on page 10, perfect for reading during thunderstorms, and Emma's favorite, authors who probably needed a hug. For 3 hours, Emma shelved returns, dusted neglected corners, and helped the occasional customer navigate Iris's unique organizational approach. By closing time, her shoulders had relaxed from their perpetual defensive hunch, and she had earned her first $15. As Emma prepared to leave, Iris pressed a paperback into her hands. "First day bonus," she said with a wink. "Everyone should own at least one book that feels like it was written just for them." Emma looked down at the worn copy of Jane Eyre, and something caught in her throat. "Thank you," she managed. The walk back to Westlake was cold, but Emma barely noticed. The book was tucked safely in her coat pocket, and the locket rested warm against her skin. For the first time in her memory, she had experienced something like kindness, with no apparent strings attached. The sensation was as unsettling as it was welcome. That night, after lights out, Emma examined the locket more carefully by the faint moonlight streaming through her window. She tried to decipher the insignia, running her fingers over the raised design. As she did, something clicked, and a hidden compartment in the locket sprang open, a secret within a secret. Inside was a tiny folded piece of paper, the creases so worn they were almost transparent. With trembling fingers, Emma unfolded it to reveal a message written in elegant script, "For our beloved Emmeline. May this keep you safe until we find you again. The truth is in Evermore. Look for the lion's star. Emmeline." The name echoed in her mind like a bell ringing in a distant tower. A memory tried to surface, someone calling her, not Emma, but Emmeline, then slipped away like water through cupped hands. She read the note again. Evermore. The lion's star. None of it made sense, and yet, Emma slipped from her bed and padded silently to the small bookshelf in the common room. Among the outdated encyclopedias and donated children's books was a worn atlas. She flipped through it, heart racing, searching for any mention of a place called Evermore. Nothing. Disappointed but not deterred, she returned to her room and placed the note back in the locket. Perhaps it was all nonsense, the imaginings of whoever had owned the jewelry before it was discarded. Or perhaps Emma fell asleep with the locket clutched in her palm, dreaming of lions and stars and a place called Evermore, where someone might be looking for a girl named Emmeline. Days turned into weeks. Emma settled into a routine of school, orphanage chores, and afternoons at Calloway Books. The small paycheck she received each Friday was carefully hidden beneath a loose floorboard in her room, a growing secret that gave her a fragile sense of hope for the future. The Calloways became something Emma had never experienced before, adult friends who seemed to genuinely enjoy her company. Martin helped her with college application essays during slow afternoons, while Iris taught her the fine art of recommending the right book to the right person. "It's about seeing what they need, not just what they think they want," Iris explained one rainy Tuesday. "That businessman who came in asking for the latest thriller? He really needed poetry. Did you see how his shoulders softened when I showed him Mary Oliver?" Emma had seen it and marveled at Iris's intuition. "How did you know?" People carry their hurts and hopes in how they stand, how they speak, what their eyes do when they think no one's watching, Iris said, shelving a book of essays. "You have to look beyond the surface." Emma wondered what Iris saw when she looked at her. Did the older woman perceive the constant hum of anxiety that underscored Emma's every moment? The way she still flinched at unexpected movements? The hunger for belonging that no amount of food could satisfy? "What about me?" Emma asked before she could stop herself. "What book would you give me if I walked in as a stranger?" Iris's hand stilled. She turned to Emma with an expression of such profound tenderness that Emma nearly took a step back. "Oh, my dear," Iris said softly, "I'd give you stories of lost princesses who find their way home, tales of ordinary girls who discover they were extraordinary all along." Emma's hand automatically went to the locket hidden beneath her sweater. She had continued researching ever more, and the Lion's Star, whenever she could access the library computers at school, but had found nothing concrete. "Why those stories?" Emma's voice was barely above a whisper. "Because," Iris said, her eyes crinkling at the corners, "those are the stories for girls who don't yet know their own worth. Girls who are waiting for their real life to begin." Something shifted in Emma's chest, like a key turning in a lock she hadn't known existed. That evening, as Emma prepared to leave the bookshop, Martin Calloway entered with an excited expression. "Emma! Glad you're still here. I've got news." He set his briefcase on the counter and extracted a college brochure. "Northfield College has a special scholarship program for students in your situation. Full tuition, room and board. All you need is the right entrance essay and a faculty recommendation." He beamed at her. "Which, of course, I'd be honored to provide." Emma stared at the glossy brochure, unable to process what she was hearing. College had seemed an impossible dream, something for people with families who planned for their children's futures. I don't know what to say," she stammered. "Say you'll apply," Martin urged. "The deadline is next month. We can work on your essay together." "But why would they choose me?" The question contained all of Emma's self-doubt, all the years of being passed over, forgotten, deemed unworthy of special attention. Iris stepped forward and placed her hands on Emma's shoulders. "Because, Emma Thorne, you are remarkable. Your mind, your heart, your resilience, these are qualities that deserve to be nurtured." The sincerity in Iris's eyes made Emma's throat constrict. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. As Emma walked back to the orphanage that night, the college brochure safely tucked alongside Jane Eyre. In her bag, snow began to fall again, not the harsh, driving snow of winter, but the delicate, lace-like flakes of early spring. Each one that landed on her upturned face felt like a promise. The locket seemed to pulse against her skin, as if responding to the surge of hope within her. For the first time, Emma allowed herself to wonder if the message inside might be more than fantasy. If somewhere, someone had once loved a girl named Emmeline enough to promise they would find her again. She was so lost in thought that she almost didn't notice the black car with tinted windows, slowly tracking her progress down the street. It was only when it accelerated slightly to pull ahead of her that Emma's instincts, honed by years of navigating the subtle dangers of institutional living, caused her to tense. The car stopped at the intersection ahead. Emma slowed her pace, considering whether to turn around. Before she could decide, the rear window lowered, and a woman's face appeared. Elegant, 60s, with silver hair swept into an immaculate coif. Even in the dim streetlight, Emma could see that the woman's eyes were the exact shade of green as her own. "Excuse me," the woman called, her accent distinctly foreign. "Could you assist me? I seem to be rather lost." Emma hesitated. Every warning she'd ever received about strangers flashed through her mind. Yet something about the woman's voice tugged at her memory like a half-forgotten melody. "I'm looking for Westlake Orphanage," the woman continued. "Perhaps you know it?" Emma's heart stuttered. "Why are you looking for Westlake?" The woman's gaze sharpened, studying Emma's face with an intensity that felt almost physical. "I'm searching for someone," she replied softly. "Someone who was lost to us many years ago." Emma's hand went instinctively to her throat, where the locket lay hidden beneath her scarf. The woman's eyes tracked the movement, widening slightly. "What are you wearing around your neck?" the woman asked, her voice now trembling. Before Emma could respond, the car door opened and the woman stepped out. She was tall and slender, dressed in clothing that Emma instinctively knew cost more than everything in the orphanage combined. But it was her eyes, Emma's eyes, that held Emma rooted to the spot. "May I see it?" the woman asked, gesturing toward Emma's throat. "Please." With shaking fingers, Emma withdrew the locket from beneath her layers of clothing. The tarnished silver caught the streetlight, the heart shape swinging gently between them. The woman's composure cracked. A sound escaped her, half sob, half gasp. She reached out with gloved hands, stopping just short of touching the locket. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "It was in a donation box," Emma replied, suddenly defensive. "I found it. It's mine now." "Yes," the woman agreed, tears now flowing freely down her aristocratic face. "Yes, it is yours. It has always been yours, Emmeline." The name hit Emma like a physical blow. She took a step backward, nearly stumbling on the icy sidewalk. "How do you know that name?" "Because I gave it to you," the woman said simply. "The day you were born." The world seemed to tilt beneath Emma's feet. The locket burned against her skin, no longer a mystery but a key, unlocking possibilities too overwhelming to comprehend. "Who are you?" Emma demanded, her voice barely audible over the pounding of her heart. The woman straightened her shoulders, dignity reasserting itself through her tears. "My name is Helena Vasilia, Queen Mother of Evermore. And you, my dear girl, are my granddaughter." The next hours passed in a blur. Queen Helena, as her security detail deferentially called her, had produced documentation that even Mrs. Winters couldn't dismiss. Birth certificates, DNA test results prepared in advance based on samples from the orphanage's medical records, diplomatic papers that had the director of Westlake switching from suspicious to fawningly accommodating within minutes. Emma sat in the orphanage's shabby office, trying to make sense of the story unfolding before her. 15 years ago, there had been an attempted coup in Evermore, a small European principality known for its neutrality and mineral wealth. The king and queen, Helena's son and daughter-in-law, had sent their 3-year-old daughter to safety with trusted guards. But the plane carrying the young princess had crashed in a remote area. The child was presumed dead along with her protectors. "We never found your body," Helena explained, her composure now restored, though her eyes remained bright with unshed tears. "I never believed you were gone. When the revolution was quelled, we searched for years, following every lead, every possibility." "How did you find me now?" Emma asked, still not fully believing any of this applied to her. "One of our agents noticed a social media post from a local charity event," Helena said. "You were in the background of a photograph, helping serve food. The resemblance to your mother was unmistakable." Emma remembered the event, a Thanksgiving dinner where Westlake orphans were trotted out to serve the community as a gesture of giving back. She had hated every minute of it. "I don't remember any of this," Emma said flatly. "Not Evermore, not being a princess. None of it." Helena nodded, unsurprised. "You were very young, and trauma can cause memories to be suppressed. But the locket," her voice caught, "the locket was your mother's. She placed it around your neck before you were taken to safety. She believed it would protect you, lead you back to us somehow." Emma's fingers closed around the tarnished heart shape. A token of love from a mother she couldn't remember, carried next to her heart all these years without her knowledge. "What happens now?" she asked, suddenly exhausted. "That, my dear, is entirely up to you," Helena said gently. "Legally, you are of an age where you could choose to stay here, finish your schooling, and live the life you've built. Or," she hesitated, vulnerability showing through her regal facade, "you could come home, learn about the country that has been waiting for you. Meet your family." Family. The word hung in the air between them, weighted with all that Emma had never had. "I need time," Emma whispered. "To think." Helena nodded, though Emma could see it cost her. "Of course. We have arranged accommodations nearby. Take whatever time you need." She reached into her handbag and withdrew a business card with nothing but a phone number. "When you're ready, if you're ready, call this number." As Helena rose to leave, she paused, looking down at Emma with eyes that reflected back her own. "Whether or not you choose to accept your heritage, I want you to know something, Emmeline. Not a single day passed that you weren't loved, weren't searched for, weren't missed beyond measure." After the Queen Mother and her entourage had departed, Emma sat alone in the office, the business card clutched in her hand. Around her, Westlake continued its evening routine. Muffled voices, footsteps in the hallway, the clatter of dishes being cleared after dinner. None of it felt real. Not the orphanage that had been her prison and refuge for 15 years. Not the revelation that she was Princess Emmeline of Evermore, heir to a throne she knew nothing about. Emma slipped out of the office and made her way to her room, ignoring the curious stares of the other residents who had glimpsed the elegant visitors. She needed to think, needed to process the impossible turn her life had taken in the span of a single evening. But when she reached her tiny room, someone was waiting for her. Iris Calloway sat on the edge of Emma's bed, a gentle smile on her face. "Mrs. "Winters told me what happened," she said. "I thought you might need a friend." The simple kindness broke something in Emma. She collapsed onto the bed beside Iris and for the first time in years allowed herself to cry, deep, wrenching sobs that seemed to come from the very core of her being. Iris held her through the storm, stroking her hair, murmuring soothing words that Emma couldn't quite catch but found comfort in nonetheless. When the tears finally subsided, Emma pulled back, embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I don't usually fall apart when you discover your secret royalty," Iris finished with a small smile. "I should hope not. That would make it a rather common occurrence." A startled laugh escaped Emma. "This is insane, isn't it? Things like this don't happen in real life. And yet here we are," Iris said, gesturing to the locket that now hung openly around Emma's neck. "What will you do?" Emma sighed, twisting the business card between her fingers. "I don't know. How can I just leave everything I know? Go to a country I don't remember, be a princess when I've spent my life being no one." "Oh, Emma," Iris shook her head. "You have never been no one. Not to Martin and me, not to yourself if you're honest." The words touched something deep within Emma, a stubborn ember of self-worth that had somehow survived years of institutional indifference. "What about college?" Emma asked. "The scholarship Mr. Calloway found? The bookshop? Those opportunities will still be there if you want them," Iris assured her. "But perhaps consider this. Life has just handed you an extraordinary chance to discover who you truly are, where you come from. How many orphans ever get that opportunity?" Emma looked around her sparse room, at the second-hand clothes, the single photograph of herself on a school field trip, the worn copy of Jane Eyre on her nightstand. Everything she owned in the world could fit in a single backpack. Yet she had begun to build something here, a fragile foundation of friendship with the Calloways, the possibility of college, a future crafted by her own hands. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Of course you are," Iris said matter-of-factly. "Fear and courage always go hand in hand, Emma. The question is which one you'll allow to guide your decisions." Emma fingered the locket, feeling its familiar weight. Inside was a portrait of the mother she couldn't remember, and a message of love that had waited years to be discovered. "I think," she said slowly, "I need to see Evermore, to know if any of it feels like home." Iris nodded, unsurprised. "Then that's what you should do. And remember, whatever you discover there, whatever you decide, you'll always have a place with us." The simple promise meant more to Emma than all the talk of royal heritage and lost princesses. It was real, tangible, like the worn spines of books at Calloway's, like Martin's patient help with her essays, like Iris's hand now covering her own. "Thank you," Emma whispered. Later that night, alone in her room, Emma finally did what she'd been avoiding. She opened her laptop, a refurbished model Martin had helped her purchase with her bookstore earnings, and searched for Evermore. Images filled her screen, a small mountainous country nestled between larger European nations. Alpine vistas, medieval castles, modern cities with ancient hearts, and there, in official photographs, the royal family, the current king, her uncle apparently, and his family, historical photographs of her grandparents in their prime. And then, a photograph that made her breath catch, a young couple on their wedding day. The woman was unmistakably the same one from the Locket portrait, auburn hair, Emma's eyes, a smile that somehow managed to be both regal and mischievous. Beside her stood a tall man with dark hair and a serious expression that couldn't quite hide the joy in his eyes. The caption read, "Crown Prince Alexander and Princess Sophia on their wedding day, 2 years before the tragic events that would claim their lives and that of their young daughter, Princess Emmeline." Emma stared at the faces of her parents until her vision blurred with tears. They had loved her. They had tried to protect her. And somewhere along the way, the system had failed them all, leaving a little princess to grow up as Emma Thorne, believing herself abandoned and unwanted. With trembling fingers, Emma reached for her phone and dialed the number on the business card. "I'll come," she said when a crisp voice answered. "I want to see Evermore." The private jet hummed quietly around her, its luxury so far removed from Emma's experience that it felt like a dream. Queen Helena sat across from her, attempting to respect Emma's need for space while clearly longing to bridge the 17 years of separation between them. "Your hair," Helena said softly, breaking a comfortable silence. "It's exactly like your mother's, that particular shade of auburn. She never colored it, you know. Used to say nature had already given her the perfect tone." Emma touched her hair self-consciously. She had always thought it her best feature, though at Westlake standing out in any way wasn't particularly advantageous. What was she like? Emma asked. In the 3 days since the revelation, she had researched whatever she could about Evermore and its royal family, but dry historical accounts and carefully curated public images revealed little about the people themselves. Helena's face softened with memory. Sophia was incandescent, brilliant, stubborn, compassionate to a fault. She studied international law, insisted on using her position to advocate for those without power. A sad smile touched Helena's lips. Your father adored her. Alexander was more reserved by nature, more traditional, but together they balanced each other beautifully. Emma tried to imagine these people, her parents, as real individuals rather than tragic figures in a story that had somehow become her own. And me? What was I like? As a child, oh, Emmeline. Helena's eyes brightened with tears and laughter simultaneously. You were a force of nature from the moment you could walk. Always exploring, asking questions, charming the palace staff into giving you sweets when you should have been napping. The description bore little resemblance to the withdrawn, self-sufficient child Emma had become at Westlake. She wondered how much of her true nature had been buried beneath years of institutional living, of learning to expect nothing and demand even less. I don't remember any of it, Emma confessed, a fact that had been haunting her. Not the palace, not my parents, not you. Helena reached across the space between them, hesitating before gently covering Emma's hand with her own. Memory is a curious thing, my dear. Sometimes it hides in places we don't think to look, in the way our hands move, in the foods we inexplicably prefer, in the dreams that visit us at night. Emma thought of her recurring dreams of colors and languages, of her inexplicable ability to master French in school when other subjects required more effort, of her preference for cardamom in hot chocolate that had earned her odd looks from the orphanage cook on the rare occasions such treats were offered. I'm not the princess you remember, Emma said, needing to be honest. I don't know how to be royal or proper or any of the things she would have learned. No, Helena agreed. You are something far more remarkable. You are a young woman who survived loss and hardship with her spirit intact. The rest, protocol, tradition, the responsibilities of your position, these can be taught. Your strength of character, Emma, that was formed in fire. The plane began its descent, the outline of Evermore's mountains emerging through wisps of cloud. Emma felt a strange tightening in her chest. Anxiety, yes, but something else too. Something like recognition. We'll take things slowly, Helena promised as they prepared for landing. No public appearances, no pressure. Just time for you to explore, to see if any of it feels familiar. And if it doesn't? Emma had to ask. If I don't want this life? Helena's expression remained steadfast, despite the pain that flickered in her eyes. Then we will respect your decision. You are not a prisoner, Emmeline. You are home by choice or not at all. The plane touched down smoothly on a private airstrip outside the capital city. As Emma descended the steps to the tarmac, the air that filled her lungs was sharper, cleaner than she was accustomed to. Mountain air scented with pine and something else, something floral and familiar that she couldn't name. A small contingent waited at the bottom of the stairs, security personnel and a distinguished-looking man whose resemblance to the king in Emma's research photos was unmistakable. "Uncle," Helena said with formal affection as they reached the bottom of the stairs. "May I present—" But the king, Emma's uncle, was already moving forward, protocol forgotten as he stared at Emma with unconcealed emotion. "My God," he said hoarsely. "It's like seeing Sophia again." He stopped himself from embracing her, sensing her wariness. Instead, he gave a small, formal bow. "Welcome home, Emmeline. We have waited a very long time for this day." The royal motorcade wound through mountain roads toward the capital city of Kalisport. Emma watched through the window as everyday life in Evermore unfolded. Farmers tending spring crops, children playing in village squares, ordinary citizens going about their business unaware that their long-lost princess was passing by. As they approached the city, Emma's pulse quickened. The skyline was a harmonious blend of medieval spires and modern architecture, all nestled against a backdrop of snow-capped mountains. Something about it tugged at her memory, not specific buildings or streets, but an impression, a feeling of belonging that both thrilled and terrified her. The car turned up a tree-lined avenue toward an imposing structure that could only be the royal palace. Emma's hand went instinctively to the locket around her neck. "You lived here until you were 3. Helena said quietly, watching Emma's reaction. Your nursery overlooked the eastern gardens. As the car passed through ornate gates and into a courtyard, Emma was struck by a sudden, vivid memory. The scent of roses in summer heat, the sound of a fountain splashing, a woman's laughter. The impression was so strong it left her breathless. "The rose garden," she whispered, not knowing where the words came from. Helena's intake of breath was audible. "Yes," she confirmed, her voice thick with emotion. "Your mother's favorite place. You would play there while she read or wrote letters." The car stopped. Before Emma could process the implications of her unexpected memory, the door opened, and she stepped out into the heritage she had never known was hers. The next days passed in a whirlwind of controlled introductions and private tours. True to her word, Helena had arranged for Emma to explore the palace and its surroundings at her own pace, without the pressure of public appearances or formal duties. Emma met her cousin Isabel, the king's daughter who had grown up knowing the ghost of a lost cousin. Rather than resentment, Isabel showed only genuine delight in Emma's return. "I used to talk to you when I was little," Isabel confessed as she showed Emma through the palace art gallery. "Make-up conversations with my missing cousin. Mother thought it rather morbid, but it made you real to me." Emma found herself warming to the slightly younger girl, whose open nature and quick humor made her easy company. Through Isabel's eyes, the intimidating grandeur of the palace became a home filled with history and family stories. "This is you, by the way," Isabel said, stopping before a portrait of a solemn toddler in a ridiculously formal dress. "Your third birthday portrait, painted just weeks before." "Well, you know." Emma stared at the child in the painting. Auburn curls, serious green eyes, a small hand clutching what appeared to be a stuffed lion. A strange disconnection washed over her. That child was her, and yet a stranger. "I don't remember any of this," Emma admitted. Isabel linked her arm through Emma's companionably. "Perhaps that's for the best. You were barely 3 when the coup happened. Those last days were chaotic, frightening. Uncle Alexander and Aunt Sophia were killed trying to reach you after they learned the rebels had discovered your hiding place." The matter-of-fact recitation of her parents' deaths sent a shock through Emma. She had read the historical accounts, of course, but hearing it stated so plainly by someone who had grown up with this knowledge as family history made it suddenly, painfully real. "How did I survive?" Emma asked. It was a question that had been troubling her since Helena's revelation. Isabel guided Emma to a window seat overlooking the gardens. "No one knows exactly. The plane carrying you and your guards went down in a remote area. By the time Loyalist forces reached the site, they found the bodies of your guards, but not yours. It was assumed you had either wandered away or been taken by opportunists who discovered the crash. And I ended up in an American orphanage," Emma finished, trying to piece together the impossible journey. "The working theory," Isabel said. "Is that someone found you, perhaps a traveler or hiker, and with no identification beyond the locket, eventually surrendered you to authorities in another country, possibly to avoid questions about how they came to have a foreign child in their custody?" Emma touched the locket that she had not taken off since discovering it. "All these years," she murmured. "So much loss, so much chance." Isabel squeezed her arm sympathetically. "Yet here you are. Against all odds, you found your way home." Home. The word resonated within Emma, both alluring and intimidating. Was this truly her home? Could it be after so many years elsewhere? That evening, unable to sleep in the luxurious suite that had been prepared for her, Emma slipped out onto her balcony. The night air was cool, the sky ablaze with stars that seemed closer, brighter than she had ever seen them. Her eyes were drawn to a particular constellation directly overhead, 3 bright stars forming a triangle around a 4th central star. Something about the pattern called to her. "The lion's star," came a quiet voice behind her. Emma turned to find Helena standing in the doorway, wrapped in a dressing gown despite the late hour. "I couldn't sleep either," the older woman explained. "I keep worrying this is all a dream, that I'll wake to find you gone again." Emma gestured to the constellation. "What did you call it?" Helena joined her at the balcony railing. "The lion's star. It's unique to Evermore's skies, our national symbol. The central star aligns perfectly with the highest spire of the palace only 3 nights each year." She smiled softly. "Tonight is one of those nights." Emma's hand went to the locket, remembering the message inside. "Look for the lion's star. The truth is in Evermore," she whispered. Helena glanced at her sharply. "What did you say?" Emma opened the locket and carefully extracted the tiny note, handing it to her grandmother. Helena's hands trembled as she read the faded message. "Your mother wrote this. she said, her voice breaking. "The night they sent you away. We all believed the coup would be quickly suppressed, that you would be back within days." Emma looked back at the constellation, the lion's star, feeling its light as almost a physical touch on her skin. What was the truth she wanted me to find? Helena returned the note carefully to Emma's outstretched hand. "I think perhaps it was simply the truth of who you are, where you belong." She hesitated. "Would you like to see your parents' rooms? They've been preserved all these years." The question caught Emma off guard. Part of her wanted to run from such a direct confrontation with her past, but another part, the part that had survived 17 years of uncertainty, needed to know. "Yes," she decided. "I would." Helena led her through quiet palace corridors, their footsteps muffled by ancient carpets. They passed guards who bowed respectfully, but asked no questions about the late-night excursion. Finally, Helena stopped before an ornately carved wooden door. From a chain around her neck, she produced a key. "No one enters here except for cleaning," she explained. "It was too painful for many years, and then it became a kind of memorial." The door swung open silently, revealing a suite of rooms that seemed frozen in time. Not dusty or neglected, Helena had mentioned cleaning, but preserved with an air of expectancy, as if the occupants had just stepped out momentarily and might return at any moment. Emma moved through the sitting room, taking in the evidence of the lives cut short, books left open, a half-finished letter on a writing desk, photographs in silver frames. She picked up one frame, heart aching at the image it contained, her mother holding a toddler Emma, both laughing as autumn leaves fell around them. "That was taken about 6 months before." Helena didn't finish the sentence. Emma continued into the bedroom, where a large four-poster dominated the space. On the bedside table sat a music box, its porcelain surface painted with roses. Without thinking, Emma reached out and lifted the lid. A melody spilled into the silent room, hauntingly familiar notes that bypassed Emma's conscious mind and went straight to something deeper, more primal. Images flooded her mind, gentle hands tucking her into bed, a woman's voice singing along with the melody, the scent of lavender and roses, absolute safety and love surrounding her like a blanket. "My lullaby?" Emma whispered, tears streaming down her face. "She used to play this every night." Helena moved to her side, her own tears falling freely. "Yes. It was specially made for your birth, the royal lullaby of Evermore adapted just for you." Emma sank onto the edge of the bed, overwhelmed by the memory and all it implied. This wasn't just an intellectual understanding that she had once been Princess Emmeline. This was a visceral, emotional connection to the child she had been, to the parents who had loved her. "I remember them," she said in wonder. Not clearly, not completely, but pieces. "Feelings. They loved me so much." Her voice broke on the last words. Helena knelt before her, taking Emma's hands in her own. "They did. We all did. And now you've found your way back to us." Emma looked into her grandmother's eyes, her own eyes, her mother's eyes, and felt the last of her resistance crumble. Whatever doubts she still harbored about her place in this new world, one truth was now undeniable. She had been loved. She was loved still. "I want to stay," Emma said, the words emerging with absolute certainty. "I want to learn about Evermore, about my family, about who I might have been, who I might still become." Helena's joy was incandescent, though she tried to temper it with royal dignity. "We will take it slowly," she promised again. "You must finish your education, of course. And when you're ready, only when you're ready, we can introduce you to your people." Emma nodded, already thinking of all that lay ahead, the challenges of adapting to royal life, the public scrutiny that would inevitably come, the weight of a heritage she was only beginning to understand. Yet alongside these concerns was a growing sense of possibility. For the first time, Emma's future stretched before her not as a grim struggle for survival, but as a path illuminated by purpose and belonging. Later, as dawn broke over the mountains of Evermore, Emma stood again on her balcony. The Lion Star constellation had faded with the coming of daylight, but its pattern remained imprinted in her mind, a celestial signpost that had helped guide her home. She thought of the Callaways, who had shown her the first real kindness she could remember, of Mr. Winters and Westlake Orphanage, which for all its flaws had been the only home she had known for 15 years, of the strange winding path that had brought her from abandoned orphan to returned princess. Emma fingered the locket around her neck, no longer a mysterious found object, but a tangible connection to her past, present, and future. Inside were the faces of those who had loved her first, and a message that had waited patiently for years to fulfill its promise. The truth was indeed in Evermore. Not just the truth of her royal heritage, but the deeper truth that she had never truly been alone, never truly been unwanted. The circle of loss that had defined her existence for so long had finally closed, revealing at its center not emptiness, but a constellation of love that had been waiting for her all along. As the morning sun bathed the ancient city in golden light, Princess Emmeline of Evermore took a deep breath of mountain air and prepared to begin again.